Today's question's from Alison, and Alison asks, any suggestions for when you're talking on a noisy stage? Alison, when you first asked me this, I didn't know what you meant at all. And then I thought, oh, she must mean when you're speaking at an expo where there's no walls and you have noise from people who are not in the immediate area with you, but in other places in the building, and it's bleeding through into your stage area. But that's not what you meant at all. You go on to explain that you actually mean this quite literally. So any suggestions when you're talking on a noisy stage, other than taking your shoes off and staying still? You mean that sort of noisy stage? Okay, well that's fine. So the thought that immediately comes to my mind is, Alison, are you a pacer? Are you pacing up and down the stage when you're talking? I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of walking around. I think from the audience's point of view, it can be a bit irritating. It's a bit like watching a tennis match. Stay still already. And if you think of a lot of sort of famous orators, politicians, for example, from Martin Luther King to Barack Obama, they stand still and are incredibly charismatic. So I'm a fan of standing still, and that will certainly overcome a problem with squeaky floorboards. But let me tell you how to stand still specifically. There's a pose you may have heard of if you do yoga at all. It's called the mountain pose. And the mountain pose is a great pose for public speakers. I'll describe it to you. So you stand, and your weight should be resting equally on both feet. You should always, when you stand, be symmetrical, not asymmetrical. So stand with your feet hip width apart. Have your knees slightly soft, so they're not locked. So they're slightly bent, ever so slightly, but they're soft. And stand up tall and straight, and with your head up high, not like this, just with your head up tall and your shoulders are back. And this is a great pose for a public speaker to stand in. Because when you're standing like this, you're very strong, you're connected to the ground, and that's wonderful. But you still have a lot of space to move around in, kind of from, you can feel at the waist, there's a lot of space here to speak in. And it's very possible to create an awful lot of movements just by standing still. And there's various ways you can do this. One is when you stand, if you stand in this pose, notice that you can bounce up and down on the balls of your feet. And doing so, you can create a lot of movement, not just up and down, which would be a bit strange, but moving around. I'm sitting down at the moment on a chair, but I have an awful lot of space around me to play with. So practice that, bouncing up and down on the balls of your feet. Another way to create movement and to create a sense of connection with your audience is through your gaze. And while you're talking, use a sweeping gaze around the room. And this creates a sense of movement and a sense that you're talking to everybody in the room without pacing up and down when you're talking. The other one is leaning into an audience. When you're talking to somebody and they're across a table from you, then you can lean into the table a little bit, slightly into their personal space, not too much, and maybe put your hand out closer to them. You can create the same intimacy with a huge room of people. So when you're standing in your mountain pose and you're standing nice and straight, feet hip width apart, slightly soft knees, just lean in slightly at the waist, lean forward. When you lean in and talk to people in this way, with these sorts of gestures, when you're talking, notice my open palm gestures. You can create energy and a sense of movement and a sense of inclusivity with your audience, but without pacing up and down all over the place. Squeaking as you go. I'm implying the floorboards there and not your knees, but no judgment. So try that. Try speaking without walking around the next time you speak and see what a difference it makes to your audience.